Well, you don't have to be a trained professional. No, we're in the studio. We are, in fact. We're at Walsh University, home of the Mother Angelica Studios. We have the privilege of being here and presenting to you Living Right with Dr. Ray, special version, Worth Another Look. We got to go back previous years. We've been on the air 9 years now. Previous years, early years, selected some of our best bits, some of our best segments, some of our best interviews. We had a problem. I had fun doing it. We wanted to put together a number of shows. I ran out of material after the first show, so I got permission. I'm going to use some of Father Mitch's shows and Jeanette's shows. So they might be put in here somewhere along the lines. One of the segments we always had was a personal interest segment. I watched this interview before I came on the air. Ladies, I know why you don't like to watch sad movies when you got makeup on. I'll tell you, I watched our first interview with Grace Leone. Her husband was 32 years old when he was shot and killed. Routine traffic stop left her as a young mother. Watched it again. It hit me harder the second time around. We're going to play it for you. And then we're going to update. We're going to have Grace come into the studio now and see where she is several years later. They like you already. Our guest is Grace Leone. She is the widow of a slain Cleveland police officer many years ago, leaving her as a young mother with a 2-, 4-, and 5-year-old. Grace has pulled her life together through her Catholic faith and now is heading in another direction, a good direction. Hi, Grace.
Hi.
Thanks for coming. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
Tell me about your husband, Wayne.
My husband was an amazing man. He was a great husband, a great father. He was a great police officer. He really believed he was making a difference in his community, and he was a man of great faith.
When this happened, obviously, as a psychologist, I've had experiences with a lot of folks who have hit with great tragedy, unspeakable tragedy. Mm-hmm. Did you go numb?
Yes, absolutely.
For how long?
A very long time. It seemed like years. I don't remember years of my children's childhood, and took a long time to put the pieces of my life back together and try to transition to a life that didn't have Wayne in it, and that was really hard because there's so much of him still in our lives. It was such a shock. He was taken from us so quickly and so violently that it took a lot to make it seem real that this even happened.
Most people in circumstances like that would either hear from other folks or personally say, what kind of God is this? How could he let this happen? Wayne is a good man. He's a faithful man. We have a good, faithful family. We play by the rules. We do what is good and right. This is how we get treated. Did you struggle with that?
A little bit I did. I did struggle with that. We were a young family. Wayne was doing a job that, helping the community, like doing good things. We were young, and we really needed Wayne. We really needed him. And it did not make sense why God did this. And I did search for I did struggle with that. I did search with a lot of answers. And a lot of my friends often asked me if I was mad at God. Was I mad? And I said, God didn't do this. And God is still the person that I pray to keep my children safe, keep me safe.
Did they think you were naive and foolish? You're just not looking at this right. You should be mad at God. Don't stuff it,
yes,
Grace.
Yes.
You're just holding it all in. Mm-hmm. You're going to have all kinds of problems because you're not grieving properly.
Yes, there were people that felt that way. Yes. But I searched for answers. I kind of wanted to know why this did not make sense to me, why this experience was happening to us. Why did God do this? And I spoke to a lot of priests. And of course I got the answers of, Wayne's in a better place, and God must have needed him more than you needed him.
Doesn't feel good at the time, does it?
No, not at all. Not at all. How could God need him more than my 3 children who needed their father? That didn't make sense to me. However, there was one priest, Father Cregan, who's a dear friend of mine who I really, really respected. I talked to him about it, and he said, you know, Grace, I don't know. I don't know why this happened to you. I have no idea. But you know, someday we're all going to know the answers. And you know what? Wayne has all the answers. And you know, he's waiting for you. And he knows when you'll be up there with him. And just hearing him have such great faith, and just hearing him say, just hearing those words that we're not supposed to know right now, that is the essence of our faith. We're supposed to trust.
You believe that? Or
Yes.
did it take time for it to sink in?
I just needed to hear it. No, I needed to hear those words, that it's okay not to have an answer right now, but we will have an answer. I just needed to hear those words.
How many people came to you with suggestions, ideas, opinions about how you should deal with this? Grace, you need to get out. You need to get out now. It's been 3 years. You need to get out. You need to get on with your life. You know, I'm sure that Wayne wouldn't expect you to live single for the rest of your life. Or Grace, come on, you know, your children need another person in their lives. I mean, how often did you hear that kind of stuff? And
I heard it very often. I still hear it today about what people think is best for me and my children.
are you advising people be very careful about what they tell somebody
Yes.
who's had a tragedy like that?
Yes, absolutely.
What is the best thing you heard? What is something that somebody said that comforted you pretty much more than anything else?
My children have always been the focus of how they're handling their grief. And the one thing that helped me the most was a fellow survivor who lost her husband in the line of duty. And I called her one day and I said, how are you doing this? How are you being both mom and dad? And she said, you can't be dad. You just be mom. You are not dad. Don't even try, because you're not going to fill those shoes. And it was such a relief that she said that, because just be mom. That's who you are, and just be mom. So of course I said, oh, thank God I don't have to wrestle on the floor with my kids anymore. It's hurting my back.
I can't throw, I throw like a girl.
Yes, it's hurting my nail. My nails are getting ruined. So and they're pointing and laughing at me, the neighbors. Yes, but truly that was the most refreshing thing. I don't have to be dad.
Took the pressure off.
Yes, absolutely. I could
You don't
just
know
be
how to
mom.
be dad.
Wayne had those qualities, and no matter how hard I try, I cannot duplicate that.
Okay, I see 2 things as a psychologist. Tell me if you had this happen to you. One is an enormous amount of sadness, guilt for the children being ripped off.
Absolutely.
And as a result, for a while, it changed your parenting.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Tell me how.
Overcompensating. Christmases were a little bit more generous than past Christmases, first few, because I definitely overcompensate because Wayne wasn't there. I really kind of didn't know how to parent to grieving children. I had to look to resources for that. What do I do? And of course I learned that children like structure no matter what their circumstances are, they still want to make sure that mom knows that things are in control, and mom has a situation, they want to feel that structure in a family. So I had to learn that you need to parent differently now. You are the only parent, and you got to do things that work for me.
You got your strength back.
Exactly.
In the sense of you re-gyroscoped your parenting, which is, I've got to set limits, I've got to have rules, I've got to punish them for disrespect, even though this happened in their lives.
Exactly, yes.
Were the kids, as they got older and understood this more, mad at God, and have they worked it through?
I'd never seen any anger towards God in them. So that was my fear, that they would be angry at God.
Ultimately chuck this whole religion thing.
Right. And they do go to Catholic schools, and I think their Catholic faith is very strong. And I think too, maybe they'd have a different opinion if I showed signs of anger at God, which I never did. That's who we pray to. And I'm so blessed that we had Wayne for as long as we did, and thankful for that. I mean, if I knew that this was going to happen, I would still do it all over again, because at least I had him in my life. If it had to be for a short time, at least I had him. And I have 3 beautiful children that are representative of our love, and they make me smile every day because I see so much of him in them.
Where are you now? After all these years, and for the first part of it, you struggled to digest it, you struggled to deal with it, you put one foot in front of the other like a robot for all those years. And now you were telling me before the interview that you're heading into, is it counseling?
Social work.
So you really are
Yes.
messed up. My apologies to all the social workers. Standard psychologist joke. You want to be a social worker?
Yes, and the people I would like to work with are traumatic grief and trauma experiences. People that experience trauma.
On this show, we have talked before about how much can you help folks if you've been there. This may be one of the areas where you can most help someone, this kind of trauma, this kind of tragedy, because for you, when you were wrestling with this, was it almost healing, as you said, to talk to that one survivor who you know she walked through this herself?
Absolutely, yes. And there was nobody initially when that happened. There was nobody. And that's why I said, show me someone who had a husband with 3 children who I kissed goodbye at the door, and hours later I was told that he was shot and he wasn't coming home anymore. Show me someone who had that experience. And there was nobody. So I reach out to a lot of survivors that share the same experience. And the one thing that they say on the first visit, I hear repeatedly is, well, I see you got through it, so it gives me hope that I'll get through it. And those words are so valuable to me, because I know what that means to them. You
can tell somebody that's going through trauma like this, as a therapist, as a well-meaning friend, relative, you can say, it won't always feel like this. You won't always be this lost, this numb, this hurting. But that has no reality at the time it's being said.
Right.
Only looking back.
You're so right.
Why, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. You know, you are a brilliant woman. They were telling me this.
Yes. No, I so strongly believe in what you said, because when you look back, or when you reach out to other people that have gone through it, and you see where they're at, and you look at them, and it serves a purpose for you as well, because you're like, whoa, I was there, and I remember that. I remember being in that place. And you know, I'm glad I'm not in that place anymore. I'm glad I'm at this point where I've healed so much, and things, you've coped a little bit more, and those skills have kind of evolved, that you're able to incorporate the loss into your life.
Are you stronger in your faith now than 14 years ago when life seemed to be going smooth?
Absolutely, absolutely. I feel that Wayne is with God, and I pray to Wayne and I pray to God, and they're together, and both of them have a hand in our lives, in my children's lives. Absolutely, yeah.
Grace Leon, thank you.
Thank you.
As a psychologist, one of the more fascinating things for me is to watch how events, good or ill, transform people. What these events do to their personality, how they grow, or how they regress. Grace Leon grew. She talked about it. That was 5 years ago. It's 5 years later. We're going to talk to Grace again. Did she grow? You're going to see.
We want to hear from you. Go to drray.com and send us your comments or questions. That's drray.com.
In my original toss, see toss, that's like professional TV talk. I can say that stuff now. My original toss, I mentioned that, Grace, I rewatched our interview. And I know how it is for you women with makeup. Because I was watching that thing and I was tearing up.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, see, just like a woman. Oh. If a guy, you say that to a guy, he goes, "What? Why'd you tear up over that? The Browns didn't call a draw play on 3rd and 12. Why'd that upset you?" It's been 5 years since you've been here. And when we talked, you talked a lot about the whole process. I think it had been 13 years since Wayne had been shot.
Yes.
You talked about all that process. And then you decided to move ahead professionally in your life. Is that completed now? You've got the degree, you're doing your stuff?
Yes, Dr. Ray, thank you for having me back. I so appreciate talking with you again. And yes.
Wait, did you guys hear that? Did you hear that? She appreciates talking with me. Thanks. Thank you. Get that, flag that. Okay.
Yes, I have completed my education. I am now a licensed social worker, so I went to Tri-C, got an Associates of Arts degree, went to the Lewis Academy of Scholars. It was a social justice, 1-year commitment for a social justice program. I completed that, and went on to Cleveland State and got my degree in social work. I'm a licensed social worker now.
You're a woman of faith, right?
Yes.
And you learned an awful lot as you went through those many years without Wayne. Mm-hmm. Raising the kids yourself. The kids are older and pretty much grown?
Yes, they were 2, 4, and 5 when Wayne passed away, and now they are 21, 22, and 24.
Wow. So are any of them still at home?
Oh, they're all still at home.
They're all still at home?
Yes, I like it that way.
Are you Italian? Italian mom? The kids
I
still
am.
get to live at home?
Yes, I do like it that way too.
So given that, what you learned personally, you had to dovetail with what they were telling you professionally. I got to believe some of it went like this.
Some does.
And some of it you thought, no. There's something here that I've learned that I think talking to other people, they've learned. Tell me the kind of things that you tell folks who have been rocked by that kind of tragedy.
Well, I deal with, ironically, my job now is that I'm embedded in the homicide unit. I work for an agency called Frontline Service. I'm part of a traumatic loss response team. And my role on the team is that I'm embedded in the Cleveland Police homicide unit. So my role...
Are you packing?
No, not today.
Not today.
But, yeah, not today. But my role is to help families of mostly unsolved homicides and all the current ones. So I do deal with very traumatic loss and families that are just going through life and have a loved one ripped out of their family in a violent way.
Do they ask for you, or you just go? You're part of, after the detectives have been there and done their work, you kind of step in and introduce yourself and say, okay.
Yes.
How many of them latch on to you and say, I need help?
Many of them do when they get a little bit comfortable and they build trust. And of course, when you're sharing such a private time, such an emotional time, it takes a little bit to build some trust. And of course, I work with the police department, so that's a little entity too that they want. A little
bit of a trust factor there.
Correct, yeah. Some of my clients, although I don't disclose my own personal experience.
You don't say a word.
Not a lot of times. Sometimes because my loss was public, some families know already, and from time to time I do go on TV for different interviews or police-involved situations that I sometimes am asked to comment on. Sometimes families do know, but professionally I don't bring it up unless it's therapeutically appropriate.
And if they say, well, how would you know? How would you know what I'm going through?
That's it exactly. That's when I could say, well, actually, because I lost a loved one in a violent way, he was gunshot. He was shot in the face, and he was ripped out of my world the same way your loved one was ripped out of yours.
You said that the unsolved cases, the lack of closure, the lack of justice will not be served.
Yes. So I have to remind our clients that this is a long journey, because we live in a world that people are frightened, and sometimes there's people that don't want to share what they saw, or because they just saw someone they knew, killed. So sometimes it's quite a process. The judicial process is a very long process. So I walk with them in this journey that they are on.
How long, Grace? How long do you stay with them?
However long they want, but usually until the court process begins. Then there's another group of advocates that take over at that point. But if they would like me to be with them still, then I am there.
What's some of the common themes that you hear?
A lot of it is anger, the initial.
Is it aimed anger or is it diffuse that life stinks?
My families are mad at law enforcement. They're mad at their community. They're mad at whoever they suspect did it, and we have to kind of be careful with that they don't take things on themselves. So we encourage our families to let the detectives do what they're trained to do and what they do so well, and that's their expertise. Let them do that. Why help you deal with your grieving?
Do you have any chance to follow up on these folks, year, two,
yes.
3 later?
Yes, absolutely.
What do you see?
It's a huge transformation. First in their healing and their peace with what has happened. Their coping skills have improved a lot. Their faith in the process of dealing with unsolved homicides, because initially, they're hurting, they're raw, they're tainted by what they see on TV as reality.
Supposed to be solved in half an hour here, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Max.
Exactly.
With a few commercial breaks.
Exactly. And so they kind of have a better idea of what the process is and why certain things were said to them along the way of their investigation, like as to not compromise the case or not giving them a lot of information, because it's an unsolved homicide and you have to protect the case ultimately to get justice.
We vetted you before you came in, you know.
Oh.
And we know that your oldest son is kind of following in his dad's footsteps.
Yes. So Justin, who's 24, he graduated college. He went to Kent State and got an exercise science degree. Along the way, he definitely had an interest in public service, and he was he wanted to be a fireman. So ironically, he got his degree. He was asked to be in the Cleveland Fire Academy, and he's been a Cleveland fireman since January.
And he wears his
father's badge, yeah. So
how come I knew that and you didn't want to say that?
I know, I'm sorry, I was getting to.
It's all right.
But it was such a proud moment as a mom that he got issued his dad's badge number, and 1338 is alive and well in Cleveland, doing good things again.
Isn't that funny how that is?
Yes.
When that little guy was 5 years old and his dad left for better places, you never thought 19 years hence you're going to be looking at something like that. You just don't know. You don't know where the rivers of life go, do you?
Very true, very true. Yes, and his dad would be very, very proud of him. And I am so proud of him as well.
You are one of the interviews that we picked to visit with again, because the first time around was pretty moving. And the second time around, kind of the same thing, you know?
Well, I'm honored to be here. You know, when this tragedy struck our family, I was a young wife with very young children. I prayed and prayed, God, why did you do this? Why? I don't understand. Please give me, show me the path I'm supposed to be on. Why did this happen? Open the doors I'm supposed to walk through. What am I supposed to do with this? So it's very interesting, 19 years later, how the path has taken us, all of us.
I've mentioned on the show an answer to all of that question. Why? The answer is because you don't know everything I know. You don't see as far as I see. You don't see everything I see. Thanks, Grace.
Thank you very much.
One of the ever-old, ever-new questions in Christianity, those who believe in God. Why do bad things happen to good people? You saw Grace. What a great name. You saw how sweet she was. You saw how thoughtful she was. Now, you only saw her for 12 minutes. So you can conclude she's that way as a person, and I will tell you she is. So, with someone like that, why does that kind of tragedy happen? We asked Father Larry. Let's see what he says. A fella came into my office, longtime Christian, saw himself as a faithful man of God. And then, as he saw it, God gave him some financial problems. God didn't keep up his end of things, and this fella was mad. Okay, Father Larry, I kept my end of the bargain up here. God breached the contract.
Isn't it amazing how people put a contract on God and enter into this, like, okay, God, you make sure you bless me and take care of me when I follow you. And I often say, oh, I'll never do that, because Jesus gave us a big promise in John's gospel. He says, in the world you will have trouble, but have faith in me.
Not me, though.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
living
That's the
a
thing.
good
And he
Christian
says,
life.
And I always say, if you're, like Our Lady when she appeared at Fatima, she says, I can never promise you happiness on earth. Huh? And if the Mother of God can't promise you happiness on earth, neither can anybody else. And I think that the problem is we have such a myopic view of what life is. Because Jesus came to tell us, and it's throughout the scriptures, Peter deals with it, is that we are sojourners, that we are people, this world isn't our home. We are pilgrims. We're just passing through. And so if anyone's trying to find happiness on this earth, they're never going to find it. They might get it for a time, but everything we have, everything we love, we're going to lose it all. That's why in my Be a Man book, the opening line of the book is, you are going to die. Everybody goes, oh, great
That's
way
not
to start a
that's
book.
not exactly
I don't
what
want
publicists
but
would tell you
I know,
to do
and I go, but I purposely did it because I want people to deal with reality. And again, isn't it amazing? Everybody wants to go to heaven. If I had a group here and I said, everybody raise their hands, want to go to heaven. Everybody would raise
not
their
now.
hands.
Not exactly now.
And I'd say, well, but nobody wants to die to get there. And so we all sit there and say, oh yeah, I want to go to heaven, but I want to have a good life in that first. But if heaven is everything that we say it is, and Jesus told us it is, who's the one most blessed? The one that dies at 2 or the one that dies at 92? Well, you could make a great argument of the one that dies at 2, because our time on earth is just the first sentence of eternity. And so one of the very first things we got to do is get this image of who God is and what our place is on earth, because that's why Jesus says that it's only with great difficulty the rich will enter the kingdom of heaven. Why would he say that? Because people who have a lot of things in that want and try to make heaven on earth. The poor people, they're dying of starvation, they lose their baby in their arms because the child has died in starvation. They know that this world isn't home, that there's got to be a better place. So they almost have this, okay, this isn't where God promised me everything would be. And for me, I love to give the image of people to, like when you were inside your mother. I can't imagine you had one, but when you were inside your mother.
Italian. I had a mustache even then. I came out as a baby with a mustache.
But when you were inside her, you could feel your mother, you could experience your mother. Everything came from your mother. You knew that your mother was there, but you couldn't see your mother until you were born. We're in the womb of God, if you will. It doesn't make God a woman, it's an analogy. We can feel God, we can experience God. Everything we have comes from God, but we can't see God until we're born to eternal life. When we start having this perspective,
the perspective of God kind of owes me.
Yeah, instead that he does, but he owes us the gift. He promises eternal happiness. He doesn't promise us temporal happiness. And so often people are only trying to say, okay, God, if I'm good, you're going to take care of me.
But this is all I know.
Absolutely, but that's why we need a bigger perspective. If this, once someone says, in the book Day or Night, I forget which one it was, there's a guy crying out and he's watching one of these boys being killed in Auschwitz. And he cries out, where is God when this happens? When this happens? Where is God when this boy is being killed? And the guy next to him says, the same place he was when Jesus was being killed on the cross. He's right there. That when the world puts a period, God puts a comma. That we have to start seeing things from the perspective of eternity and not the perspective of this earth. And so if you go to God for only what he can do for you, then your whole relationship with God is a selfish act. It's all about you and what God can do for you.
I'm not going to him for what he can do for me. I'm saying that if I do for him,
then he owes you.
A human
Exactly.
relationship.
That's not a relationship at all. That's a using of God instead of a loving of God. That ultimately, again, the best way, all it is analogies. For instance, let's say you have a little boy. Your little boy has pneumonia. Your little boy is going to die. Your little boy hates needles. He comes to you and you're going to take him to the doctor, and your kid cries to you and says, listen, I am so afraid. Don't you let that doctor give me a needle. And then you sit there and you hold your son while the doctor gives him the shot. Your boy would look at you and say, I trusted you. I loved you. I asked you to protect me, and you let this man hurt me with that shot. The very thing I asked you not to do is the very thing you did. And yet, you knew that for his good, he had to get that pain and he had to feel that shot. Well, God is often the one who holds us as we get the shots. We don't understand the pain. We don't understand the mystery. But God says, in the end, you're going to see, in the end, I make all things good. And it's like, well, I want to see it now, God. Yeah, me too, sometimes. Exactly. But God is bigger than us, and so is everything else.
In the movie The Passion, our Lord says to his mother, see, I make all things new. It's great to have a God that doesn't do it our way.
Yeah, thank you, God, yes.
Why do bad things happen to good people? You could ask the converse question. Why do good things happen to bad people? Common answer, people seem to accept it. Grace Leone accepted it. We don't know. I think there's a better answer. We don't know everything. That's the better answer. Why did this happen? Why did God allow this to happen? We don't know everything. But we did get some questions about suffering after that segment with Father Larry. A couple real good questions. They're worth another look. Let's go to them. I flunked out of engineering. I couldn't keep the train on the track. And I had to take a lot of mathematics. And about the only thing I remember from my mathematics and my physics courses is that if an equation has 27 variables and you know 3 of them, one thing is certain: you're going to get the problem wrong. God knows the infinite variables in what happens to us. He knows the future. He knows our reaction. He knows we know 3 variables. So if I try to solve the equation of why did God let this happen, why do bad things happen to good people, especially a person as good as me, I'm going to get it wrong. I don't struggle with this as much as I used to, because I come to understand a little more that God's infinite, and He'll take care of all of it in ways I have no idea how He can take care of it. But I trust that He can. That move any of you to comments or questions? Your name, sir?
My name is Jerry.
Jerry.
Doctor, can suffering be either wasted or put to good use in a spiritual sense?
Is suffering in and of itself a good thing? I've seen a lot of people who suffer and they get further from God. They get angry at people they love. They become pretty wretched in their outlook on life. So yeah, I guess so. But when Grace was telling us about her, and I think she said years of basically numb suffering, she said that she grew closer to God. For a believer, a strong believer, suffering usually works to the good. I've talked to an awful lot of clients who've had real misery in their lives, a lot of deaths, a lot of hurts, a lot of pains. You can divide them into 2 groups. The group that started out with a profound belief in God got even more profound. So the suffering for them brought them closer to God in eternity. The group who didn't, had a tenuous connection to God or no connection to God, their life just spiraled further down. And that's why in so many cases, I've dealt with a lot of parents who have lost children. And very often the marriage breaks because the anchor of God was not there. And pretty soon they turned on the people they once loved. One more. Let's take one more comment. Question? Your name, young lady?
Jill.
Hi, Jill.
So how do you explain it to a child? It's hard as an adult to understand, but what's the basic to give to a kid?
Next question. That's a heavy one, Jill. There's good news and bad news. The bad news is kids don't understand it at a level we do. The good news is kids don't understand it at a level we do. Oftentimes for kids, if you give them a basic explanation, they're more likely to say, okay. So for example, if you say, honey, I don't know why this happened, but I do know a couple of things. God loves us an awful lot, and He's going to bring the best out of this if we just trust Him. And a little kid is probably not going to argue with you like a grown-up would. A grown-up will turn and throw something back at you. A little kid will go, oh, okay. Thank you, Jill. That was one I hadn't pondered for a while. One of the tougher parts of doing Living Right with Dr. Ray is I don't know what the questions are going to be. Oh, there's a certain amount of pre-screening, but for the most part, I don't know what's coming. That's what's nice about Worth Another Look. I got to see him again, and I knew what was coming. When we come back, we're going to have a new question and one of our most popular segments we ever did, Living It Out. We take scenarios. This one is going to be for your ears only with our kid actor, Earhard.
We want to hear from you. Go to drray.com and send us your comments or questions. That's drray.com.
We are on the campus of Walsh University in North Canton, Ohio. With me, Molly Romano, her daughter Julie Ann, graduated just this year. Hi, Molly.
Hi, Dr. Ray.
Why you and Julie Ann heading toward Walsh?
Well, Julie did not start off at Walsh. She started off at a state school. It was a bigger university. This was a smaller campus, so it was more like family, and the ratio between the professors and the students were wonderful. She was able to approach her professors with questions, meet with them after or before class, and the Catholic identity. You know, some schools and some claim that they are Catholic, but Walsh actually believes in the Catholic faith and promotes the Catholic faith.
Did that help Julie in her faith walk?
Yes, it did.
That's what we want to hear. Thanks, Molly.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We got accused. We got accused of cheaping it out, picking old segments, putting together a new show with a mix and match. Well, it's not totally that way. We got new stuff. We've got a new around the country. Guarantee you didn't hear this one on those old shows. Hey, Dr. Ray. You could tell this is from a guy. Hey, Dr. Ray. Notice that? What do you do when people just will not listen? Hey, I'm a shrink. Welcome to my world. You can speak in the most gentle, loving way, something I haven't always been accused of, and it's like you're talking to a board. What, you got kids? As an emergency room nurse, I told a man who had a completely severed Achilles heel. That's a major league injury. that if he tried to stand, he would fall. You're a highly trained professional nurse. He stood anyway and fell. I guess we can just be ready to pick up the pieces when someone falls. Well, you know, you don't always have to pick up the pieces. Sometimes life picks up the pieces for him. One of my favorite life instructional phrases is this: dumb people don't learn from their mistakes. Smart people learn from their mistakes. Really smart people learn from the mistakes of others. If you listen, you gain. If you don't, well, you got to learn from life. Life is going to teach you. Jim, you told him. That was it. Your obligation ended. You didn't need to tell him 17 times. You told him. He didn't buy it. You know, when people say, well, he doesn't listen, my kids don't listen, and that's not it. They're listening quite fine. They don't buy it. They don't agree with it. Pretty much everybody can listen unless you have hearing problems. But short of that, they're listening. They're not accepting. I think this is the hardest part for people to deal with, especially parents. You want them to learn because of your instruction, because of your words. You don't want them to have to learn it the hurtful way. Well, that's an aspect of fallen human nature. You got to learn the hard way. Some years ago, I wrote a book, Winning the Discipline Debates. Now, this book was what I thought was scenarios, common scenarios between parents and kids, kids, parents, grandparents, husbands, wives. And in the scenarios, I step into the scene to coach them out of trouble. The one we have coming up was one we did probably 3, 4, 5 years ago, maybe more. It was called For Your Ears Only. Talking about listening? Well, let's listen to Earhard. Some people say that the biggest problem in follow-through discipline is consistency. I think the biggest problem could revolve around too many words. Discipline is action, not words. The more a parent talks, the less she is heard.
I see that if I want you to clean up your mess, I'm going to have to make it happen. Your dishes from lunch are still on the counter, and I've asked you 3 times to take out the trash. Let's go.
Mom, I told you I'd do it. Why does it have to be done right now? There are only 2 minutes left in the game, and then I'll get it.
Veteran parents, as well as savvy wives, know that in real time, the final 2 minutes of a football game are about half the length of a geologic era. The issue is not Earhard's gaming of the clock, but his obliviousness to Mom's multiplying requests. Earhard did declare, "I told you I'd do it," which in kid talk means, "I agreed to do it, so you should be happy. Don't ask me to actually do it."
You know, Earhard, I don't understand why when I ask you to do something, I have to wait until the time is right for you.
Mom, I said I'd do it. The game is almost over, and I watched it the whole time. This is the best part. It's only 2 more minutes.
Earhard, is that game over? What are you watching now? Football guys talking about the game? You said that when the game was over, you would clean up this mess. You know, Earhard, you don't realize how good you've got it. When I was growing up, I helped my mother clean that house every single day. Every Saturday morning, we were up cleaning. I was making my bed and my little sister's. We didn't have a dishwasher. I was the dishwasher.
Mom has turned to a staple of parenting, the lecture. Lectures are animated by the yearning to be understood. if we just talk, explain, enlighten, until we're close to passing out, some bit of something will penetrate, and a flickering emotional light will brighten.
We were taught that the house was everybody's house.
I know, Mom. You were great as a kid. Just ask Grandma.
Lectures aren't always for our ears only. They can actually edify a juvenile, providing several assumptions. One, children, especially adolescents, are eminently reasonable creatures. Two, children see parenting through the eyes of a parent. Three, children are eager and grateful to hear about their misconduct. Four, children like being corrected. Don't all humans? So, am I advising never lecture? No. Certainly explain yourself fully when and where you judge best. But, and how many times am I going to have to tell you this? Most lectures follow the law of diminishing returns. The more you talk, the less you're heard. Let's rewind the tape and place Mom back in the TV room at halftime. The first time she spoke to Earhart.
You know, I was your age once, and I knew that if I was going to get privileges, I had to be responsible. I was the oldest, just as you are, and my parents expected a lot out of me. You know, life isn't all about just play, and I don't know why you drag your feet so much. Are you listening to any of the words I'm saying? You know, I'm not talking to hear myself talk, Earhart. Earhart.
Short, clear, to the point, consequential. But I just have to say one more thing. There's a law of discipline. If you talk 200 to 400 words a minute with gusts up to 800, you're throwing ping pong balls at the hull of an aircraft carrier for all the impact you're having.
This is not the organ of discipline. If this is what you use 90% of the time,
close it. It has a tendency just to get loud and nasty when you repeat yourself over and over and over. Do you have this experience? Earhart, I'm beginning to sense my own anger pangs, and I'm feeling that if I talk for another 47 minutes, I might raise my voice. I will get agitated. No, you know what you do? You go to confession every 2 days. Bless me, Father. I was so much holier before I had children. It is. They're supposed to be rewards from God. Why do I do this? The big illusion of discipline is talk. Of course, the experts got you all convinced. If you just talk right, if you say the right words, right logic, right tone of voice, set up win-win scenarios, iMessages, active listening, and the child will respond. That's so clear, Mother. Thank you. Thank you for explaining it to me. You know, had you droned on for 27 or 28 more minutes, you might have lost my attention. But the first hour or so, I was right with you. Well, make your point once. Then back it up. Now that's all the new stuff you're going to get for this program, because the rest of it was the old stuff. We heard from Father Larry. We had one of our most touching interviews, Grace Leone. I teared up when I watched that interview the first time around. I truly did. And when bad things happen to good people, the all-time, ever new, ever old, ever distressing Christian question. There's a simple answer to that. We just don't know everything. Of course, you can't listen to my wife, because she does say that. She says, "Oh, Ray, you think you know everything." Thanks for joining us here on Living Right with Dr. Ray. Worth another look. I hope it was worth it for you. Another look. Maybe next week they'll have a really another look. They'll get a totally new host. Thanks for everything. God willing, I'll see you again. On the next Living Right with Dr. Ray, we go to Buffalo. Station of the Cross Catholic Radio Network is with us. Justin Fatica returns his Hard as Nails ministry. Find out how to reach those tough-to-reach teenagers, young people. Morality, reality. College kids talk about forgiveness. Father Larry, sin in the church. What do you do? Join us.